Hello and welcome to Better Body Movement. This class is designed to help you start feeling well.
I have less pain, literally eliminate that pain.
I just feel better.
I can tell that my posture is changing.
Bright light in the day when we've done our workouts online.
Makes me feel so good about myself.
To best help your hips, you must understand the deep muscles under the glutes that hold your hip socket in place. The piriformis connects to the anterior sacrum and sacral ligament to the greater trochanter of the femur. The obturator externus connects from the obturator foramen to the trochanteric fossa of the femur. The remaining deep muscles are the gemellus superior, obturator internus, gemellus inferior, and quadratus femoris. We're going to begin with a stretch of the piriformis. Start seated in a chair and place one foot on top of the opposite knee. To create the stretch, pull the hips forward as if pushing your belly button through the hole between your legs. In this stretch, press your foot down into the knee for 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Relax and pick up the slack for about 10 seconds. 8, 7. Again, you're relaxing the belly button through the knees. 4, 2, 1. Press the foot into the leg for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And pick up the slack, relaxing forward. 8, 7, 3, 2, 1. Repeat this process for a total of 10 contractions. Now, in the same figure 4 position, use a lacrosse ball to increase the intensity. Place it right at the head of the femur where the piriformis inserts. You may have to roll around a little bit to find the tender spot. Once you find it, repeat the 5-second contract and 10-second relax sequence for a total of 10 repetitions. Next, we're going to work the glute maximus. The glute muscle starts at the posterior sacrum, ilium, and posterior gluteal line of the ilium, all the way down the gluteal tuberosity of the femur, iliotibial tract attaching to the lateral condyle of the tibia. When the glutes are not working correctly, the attachments at the knee take the brunt of the pain. We're going to begin the work on the glutes by simply sitting on the foam roller and rolling back and forth. If you feel like you're not getting enough pressure, you can lean to one side, either with your arm on the ground or your arm on the foam roller. Remember to work the glutes with different leg positions. You can roll them in or let them drop out while you continue to roll back and forth over that tissue, looking for the most tender and sore spots. When you find one, sit and hold. After some deep breaths, move on. Continue to find the most tender spots on the left and right sides. If it feels like you didn't get enough pressure, move on to the lacrosse ball. Place the lacrosse ball under the glute muscle. Side note, to take some pressure off the wrists, simply use your foam roller as an armrest under your elbows. Begin rolling the ball around the glute muscle till you find a tender spot. Pause and breathe. Remember to take deep breaths through the diaphragm. Each time you breathe out, relax more into the lacrosse ball. Next, we're going to focus on the glute medius, minimus, and the tensor fascia lata. The glute medius connects from the iliac crest of the ilium between the posterior and anterior gluteal lines out to the greater trochanter of the femur. Beneath the gluteus medius is the gluteus minimus. This muscle begins from the ilium between the anterior and inferior gluteal lines to the anterior surface of the greater trochanter of the femur. These two muscles work together to steady the pelvis during ipsilateral training, or standing on one leg. The tensor fascia lata begins from the iliac crest posterior to anterior superior iliac spine all the way down to the iliotibial tract, which you can see is the lateral condyle of the tibia. Much like the glute max, when these muscles are not firing, the pressure goes directly into your knees. Laying on your back with a straight leg and your opposite knee bent, place the lacrosse ball next to your hip. Do not lift the hips to place the ball. Simply relax on the floor, place the ball beside your hip. Now, roll over onto the ball. You may have to move the ball around a little bit to find the right spots, but ultimately, you are looking for the pain to settle into the lacrosse ball. You may begin by rolling the knee in and out or pressing down into the floor and lifting the leg just a tiny bit. This position is uncomfortable. Stay here until you feel those muscles relax and you can allow your pressure to lay on the lacrosse ball.
All right, here we go. We are back for a core day. Turn that music down. But first, we're going to go through our iDedicates, and then we'll get into our verse of the day, and then get cranking on that workout. So our iDedicates have pretty much stayed the same consistently. So again, remember, if you have anyone else that you would like to put on our dedication board, we absolutely would love to pray for them as we go. So Lori's mom doing dialysis 3 times a week. Ethan battling that stage 4 liver and bile duct cancer. My friend's wife, who is treating her breast cancer naturally. Sky toying with her transplant process. As far as I know, everything still is just, she's trying to make it through with all the different antibiotics, anti-rejection medications. So a tough process. And I know the biggest part for her was headaches. A lot of those medications are causing some pretty severe headaches. So be praying for her through that process. And then Erin, praying for her foot and ankle, which Lois last week said is healing up actually pretty nicely now that they got the infection out of there. Before our verse of the day, go ahead and if you have not yet, subscribe into the channel. Like the video and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're joining us from so that way we can kind of see how things are going. Now, our verse of the day. Before destruction, a man's heart is haughty, but humility comes before honor. Proverbs 18:12. It's funny, I actually just saw this verse, I think it was in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, talking about basically pride. Pride comes before the fall, right? It's when we think we're high that we're brought low. When we think we're doing well in something is when we'll be shown, well, really you're not as strong as you think you are in that. So kind of an interesting verse because it just whatever that word is. Sometimes I don't think of words. That's okay. Reinforces that idea that when we're haughty and when we put ourselves on a pedestal, it's really easy to fall off of that pedestal. But when you're humble and walking on the ground, it's really hard to fall off onto the ground. So that's one of the cool things about that. But yeah, thanks for joining. Let's jump into our workout. Remember, core day, we're just going to lay on the floor. You don't have to worry about really taking off, doing anything crazy. But just go ahead and get set on the floor. Remember, with our core day, we want to start with a nice, strong
pelvic tilt.
Kegel, right? So cut off like you're going to the bathroom, and then compress that core. So this is not navel to spine, right? We're not sucking in our belly. I want to actually squeeze for the ribs to come down to the hips. And a way maybe to try that is think like a crunch. If you're going to sit up, right, you're going to force that core to get really tight. But what we want to try to train is keep your shoulders down and back while you create that compression, right? Because as I walk through the day, I'm not going to walk in a way where I'm crunched over, right? Like this. Whoa, I'm crunching. I got my core tight. No, we want to stay in a tall posture and create a nice tight core, okay? So be thinking about that as you go through the exercises, because we want to make sure that we get a really, really good tight pelvic tilt, okay? Pressing really hard.
2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with knee fall out. 3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt with knee fall out.
tilt with knee fall out. Good core compression. Squeeze nice and tight. Firm, firm, firm. Hold all the way into it. Remember, as your knees go out to the side, your hips should not roll on the ground. Your pelvis should stay firmly planted into the ground, so that way your core is holding that in place, right? We don't want to have wobbly hips as those knees go to the side. You should be able to control it the whole way out, stop where your core wants to quit, then bring it back up, keeping your core tight, okay? Re-squeeze that core, firm, firm, firm. Doing your absolute best all the way through the movement. Very good. Again, compress, compress, compress. Doing your best.
2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with adduction.
Okay, tilt with adduction. So we're gonna grab a foam roller or a pillow, whatever you've got at home, put it between the knees. Very distinct
3,
movements.
2, 1. Pelvic tilt with adduction.
Okay, so Kegel compress, core is tight. Squeeze your knees nice and tight. Release your knees, keep your core, core, core. Then release your core. Remember, all the way through, that core should be tight as you squeeze the knees and release the knees. It's going to be important when we get to round 2 and add the factor of trying to lift the feet too. But remember, you're not pushing into the floor here. You're just resting your feet. So the core should be really tight, holding firm, squeeze the knees, release the knees, then release your core, okay? Good, firm squeezes all the way through.
Three, 2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
Tilt with knee toward chest.
3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
Okay, so again, squeeze that core nice and tight. Compress, compress, compress. As you march those knees, remember your pelvis should not shift on the floor. It should stay nice and tight all the way through. Okay, doing your absolute best through the movement. Should be a little bell.
That's halfway.
Is there not a bell?
Oh, bell.
Good, good, good. Well, you might need to ring it harder.
Those are obnoxious.
Get a good whack on it.
2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with bridge.
Because if he happens to be on the other side of the gym, he might not hear it. There he is.
3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt with bridge.
Good, good, good. Core compression, tight, tight squeeze. Remember, nothing should change in your spine here, right? So we're not peeling off the floor like a sticker to come up. I want to have a nice, flat spine, right? And then as you squeeze your butt cheeks, that's what lifts you off the ground, right? So core compressed, squeeze your cheeks together nice and tight. Firm compression. Nice and tight. Good squeeze. Press, compress, compress.
Oh.
Very good. Again, do your absolute best all the way through.
1. Prepare for shoulder drops.
Wonderful. Okay, shoulder drops. The first thing we do is take those shoulders behind you to the floor as far as you can. Then reach for your feet, taking your shoulders
3,
down, right?
2,
We want to get those shoulders
1.
down and back as far as we
Shoulder
can.
drop.
Compress that core. and then your arm goes up overhead. Because again, a lot of times what I see with this is if we have a problem with the shoulder, when you go overhead, you're going to try to gain range of motion by arching your back, right? And that's not what we want. We want to maintain a nice pelvic tilt, brace your spine, get to the range of motion you have, and then bring your shoulder back down and back, okay? So again, we're always returning to that position. Core tight, shoulders down and back. Core tight, shoulders down and back. Compress, compress, compress. Very good. Again, your absolute best. Your absolute best. Again, squeeze that core. Reset those shoulders.
Prepare for dead bug.
Okay, here we go.
3.
Last one, dead bugs, bird dogs.
Dead bug.
For this round at least. You can do a dead bug or a bird dog, right? Dead bugs, first one that we'll go through. Remember, it's like you have a box in between your knees and your arms. Shoulders are doing the exact same thing that they did. So always returning back down and back. Your leg only extends as far as your core can control. So if you extend that leg and your core lifts up off the ground or your back lifts off the ground, you're going to really feel that down in your spine. And we don't want that. We want that core to be where you feel it most. So only go as far down as you can, right? So we still want to shoot for a straight leg. It's just you might point more towards the ceiling versus towards the floor, right? So compress, compress, compress. Core nice and tight all the way through. Ladies, do your best working through this. Core tight, tight, tight. Again, re-squeeze all the way through.
3.
Do your best,
2,
your best.
1. Long rest.
Awesome. Okay, you can take a little water break. Got a minute before we jump back in. Remember, round 2, what we're going to start shooting for is you're going to pull your knees gently towards your chest, enough to take some weight off of your feet. Okay, so with every single compression, you should do your core compression, Kegel, core compressed, then pull the knees very gently towards the chest. Your feet shouldn't even leave the ground. You're just taking some of the pressure off. So I say it's like scales under your feet. If it reads 20 pounds, it should read 10 pounds. Only 50% of the weight, okay? Then we'll get started
3,
here in another
2,
15 seconds. So
1.
get set on the floor, ready to go. Next countdown, we'll get started again, okay? Remember, do your absolute best all the way through.
3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt.
Press that core, squeeze nice and tight. Once you get that core tight, then gently pull on the feet, right? They shouldn't leave the floor, but you're pulling on them just enough to force that core to work even harder. If you go to pull on your feet and the core lets go and the hip or low back comes up, that's a bad deal, right? We don't want that. We want to build so much core strength and core compression that we could pull those feet as much as we want and nothing changes in the core, okay? So get as 100% core compression. So right there, that's what I'm showing. As soon as I go to pull on those knees, it pulls the back off the ground, re-squeeze the core, right? Try again. As soon as it pulls the back off the ground, release, try again. Squeeze harder, squeeze harder. It's all about how you see the squeeze and force it to work. Okay, core compression with fallout. So same type of core compression, gently pull the knees towards the chest, then go out to the side, right? You should be able to hold your core through the whole thing.
Pelvic tilt with knee fall out.
It's going to force a lot of change, okay? Force a lot of change. Good core compression, good core compression. Again, do your absolute best all the way through. Squeeze tight, right? As one knee goes out to the side, nothing changes in the core. The hips shouldn't be wobbling on the floor. Squeeze tight, 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 all the way through. Okay, do your best. Again, re-squeeze. Every single time we're going to be re-squeezing, right? Because this is so important when we get into movement, whether it's sitting down, standing up, pushing, pulling, doesn't matter. Core compression.
3, 2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with adduction.
Super important. Okay. Adduction. So grab that roller or pillow. Remember, it's going to be a process of step by step.
3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt with adduction.
So let's walk through it together. Core tight. Squeeze your knees. Gently pull the feet like you're lifting off the ground. Set them back down. Release the knees. Core should still be tight. Release the core. Do it again. Core tight. Squeeze those knees. Gently pull the knees towards the chest. Set them back down. Release the knees. Release the core. Okay, so the core should stay tight and firm through that entire thing. Keep going. Keep going. Remember, your absolute best is what matters here. It should be tight all the way through. Tight all the way through. Re-squeeze. Do your absolute best all the way through, ladies. Firm compression. Squeeze the core, squeeze the knees, lift the feet, set the feet, release the knees, release the core, right? Very, very distinct. They should not slur together tight, slur together when you let them go.
1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
Because everything we're trying to create here is the ability to squeeze your core regardless of what your hips or your shoulders do. Right? So we should have the ability to brace our spine regardless of what we're doing.
Pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
So core compressed. March those feet, right, as your knees are going. Right? Make sure you recompress that core. Don't let those hips, I say Rubik's Cube, right? Turning one side at a time. We don't want that to happen. So recompress the core is how we get it to where that'll work and not change, okay? Compress, compress, compress as hard as you possibly can. Remember, if you have questions on this, if it's vague, ask questions because that's the only way we're going to be able to really create change for you in how your body's working. Right? I know this is effective and I know it will create change when we do it the right way. Right, Marcia?
Yes.
Yes. All right, very good. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Again, core tight, squeeze tight.
1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with bridge.
Awesome. Tilt and bridge. So again, compress that core. When you squeeze your butt cheeks together really tight, you're lifting everything all simultaneously. You should not be arching your back at the top.
2, 1. Pelvic tilt with bridge.
Okay, so core stays tight, pressed, firm, firm, firm. Squeeze your butt cheeks together nice and tight. Awesome. Press your butt cheeks, squeeze tight. Good, good, good. Again, do your absolute best.
That's halfway.
Press tight, tight, tight. All the way through. Again, it's your best through these. Right? So every single time you need to recheck, compress that core, squeeze tight. Butt cheeks together, really firm. Right? Pinch that penny. Hold it tight between the cheeks. Again, feet should be about shoulder width apart. Right? Tight squeeze, tight squeeze.
3, 2, 1.
Awesome.
Prepare for shoulder drops.
Okay, shoulder drops. So again, we're really going to challenge the core with a gentle pull on those feet, even through the shoulder drops.
3, 2, 1. Shoulder drop.
Okay, so as you go, remember that shoulder should be down and back as far as you can get it before your arm goes up. Then as your arm goes up, relax your shoulder. As you return, squeeze that lat, pulling your shoulder back, down, and back. Right? That's what we want. It's that lat to fire and pull this down and back into place. Core tight. Re-squeeze the core. Re-squeeze. And I'm going to tell you every day. Re-squeeze the core. Firm, firm, firm. All the way through, ladies. Do your absolute best. Create a nice tight compression. All the way through. Very good. Awesome work.
3, 2, 1. Prepare for dead bug.
Here we go. Good dead bugs.
Three, 2, 1. Dead bug.
Remember, good core compression. Squeeze nice and tight. Remember, with bird dogs, if you do these, the extension is only as far as your core can brace and tolerate. Because what we don't want is to go through extension and arch the back trying to reach the foot up to the ceiling, or hand up to the ceiling. We want to create stability through your core as you create that extension.
That's halfway.
So same movement as the bird dog, it's just, or as the dead bug, it's just on your hands and knees. Right? So it changes the type of stability that you're applying to the movement. Again, core tight, recompress. You're almost there. 15 seconds. Do your best. Again, as you extend, your core should stay tight. It should not loosen up and create pressure on your spine. If it does, we're not compressing hard enough.
1. Long rest.
Wonderful. Okay, long rest. So remember, do get a drink. Make sure that you're staying hydrated as we go. And then we will get started on round 3, which means we're going to try to hover the feet. Remember, that's a goal. If you can't do that today, that's fine. You should be joining every single week through our strength training program in order to make sure you can get there eventually. Right? That's how much pressure we want to be able to create in our core, is that we could do these exercises with our feet hovering on the ground or off the ground.
Three, 2, 1. Prepare for pelvic.
Here we go.
tilt.
Remember, good pelvic tilts all the way through, core tight, as firm as you possibly can get it. Make sure you squeeze
3,
every ounce of pressure you have.
1. Pelvic tilt.
Okay, pelvic tilt, hold firm. Start peeling gently your feet off the floor. If we get them off the floor and your core stays tight, fantastic. If you don't, do it again. Well, no matter what, do it again. Right? Re-squeeze that core. Hold tight. Just start pulling and set them back down. Then release the core. Again, it's trying to keep that core tight through the entire movement. We don't want to see any change in that.
That's halfway.
Core firm. Core firm. Then pull the knees. Compress, 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 compress. All the way through. Again, you're doing your absolute best through the entire movement. We don't want to see any sort of change in the spinal bracing sequence. Make sure that as you pull those knees, recompress that core. Tight, tight, tight. Do your absolute best.
3, 2,
Very good.
1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with knee fall out.
Okay, tilt with knee fall out. So again, as we get set for that core compression, hover your feet,
3,
knee goes
2,
out to the side.
1. Pelvic tilt with knee fall out.
Okay, just remember though, if you are hovering your feet, you might not be able to go as far. That's fine, okay? But we do want to try. Hover both feet out to the side as much as your core can stay tight, then bring it back up. Really, really difficult, but do your best, okay? Difficult, but do your best. What's that, Marcia? You said it's super easy?
I did not.
I did not.
That's halfway.
Good core compression. Tight, tight, tight. Remember, feet hovering. Compress firm all the way through.
Three, 2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with adduction.
Good. Pelvic tilt with adduction. So remember, create that core compression, shoulder blades down and back, squeeze nice and tight.
3, 2, 1. Pelvic tilt with adduction.
Core compressed, firm, firm, firm. Again, do your absolute best. Squeeze tight. Again, doing your absolute best all the way through the movement. Squeeze, firm, firm, firm.
That's halfway.
Awesome. Again, your absolute best. Your absolute best. Create that core compression. Shoulder blades down and back. Squeeze nice and tight. Firm, firm, firm.
3, 2, 1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
Good. Into the march. So remember, core compressed as tight as you possibly can. Try to hover both feet.
2, 1. Pelvic tilt with knee toward chest.
And then march, right? So we go to the hover, then pull one foot up, back down, hover, other foot up, back down to hover, other foot up, right? So we're not scissor kicking, keeping both legs moving simultaneously. We want to hover, pull one up, back down. If you need to set your feet down, that's fine. Come back up to a hover, make sure the core is tight. Squeeze up, back down. Remember, if you can only get one or two of those, that's fine. Then go back to just taking some of the pressure off the foot. I'd rather you continue to move, being able to keep your core tight, than to try once, wait 15 seconds, and then try again, right? I'd rather you continue the repetitions. Get as many as you can with the best squeeze as you can through your core, okay? Firm, firm, firm. 10 seconds, almost there. We'll just have 3 more.
3,
Doing your best,
2,
your best.
1. Prepare for pelvic tilt with bridge.
All right, tilt and bridge. Remember, with the bridge, we want to squeeze the butt cheeks really, really tight. We're going to try to make some of these pennies. Right? Take the penny and flatten it like a train.
1. Pelvic tilt.
Right with the butt cheeks. Okay, again, shoulders down and back. Core compressed. Lift up. Squeeze tight. Firm, firm, firm. And I'm not shy to use farts either. Kegel like you got to fart. Hold it in. Hold it in. That's how we get muscles to work. It's by making them work the right way. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Nice and tight.
That's halfway.
Good. Awesome, awesome work. Again, your best, all the way through. Again, you're not peeling off the floor like a sticker and setting back down, right? If you feel like you're worming on the floor, that's not what we want. We want the shoulders immediately into the floor, lifting up, setting back down, right? Your core should be making a solid piece of steel here.
1. Prepare for shoulder drops.
Very good. Two more. Shoulder drops. Shoulders down, back, down, back, down, back. Recheck them. Redo it.
2, 1. Shoulder drop.
Again, re-squeeze. Core compressed as tight as you possibly can. Firm, firm squeeze. Hover the feet if you can. It's a huge challenge, but it should force that core to work even harder. Right? The goal would be, in a couple of days, your core would be pretty tender if you tried to sit up.
That's halfway.
We're not getting there. We can challenge more, right? Challenge more. It's all, the challenge brings change, right? That's the whole thing that I try to thrive on, is we won't create any change if you don't have any challenge, right? It's just the way that it works. Right, Patty?
Yes.
Have you ever not been challenged in your faith and experienced growth?
Oh my gosh, all the
Every day.
Challenge brings
One.
change.
Prepare for dead bug.
Very good. Dead bug or bird dog, last one of the day. Ladies, do your absolute best all the way through. Make sure you compress that core as hard as you possibly can. I know we're on the third round, last exercise,
One. Dead bug.
but that means it's going to be the most effective one of the day. Re-squeeze, core compressed. Again, as you extend, nothing should change in the spine. Hold, right? You might frame that extended position for a couple of seconds. Hold it out, 1, 2, then bring it back up. You don't have to go fast through these, but we do want to create a nice, firm pelvic tilt. Good, good, good. Nice, tight squeeze. Firm compression. Tight squeeze all the way through, core compressed, firm, firm, firm. Hold nice and tight.
Three.
Very good.
2. 1. Long rest.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Very good work, ladies. That does it for today. Remember, if you have any questions, please comment below. Absolutely would love to help you out. Like the video if you had a good workout. If you didn't have a good workout, give it a thumbs down, but leave me a comment on why it wasn't a good workout, and then we can maybe help you create some better change. We will see you guys tomorrow for our upper body day. Make sure you come ready for that. We're going to apply the core work we did today in upper body movement, how we're supposed to hold and brace our body through common ranges of motion when we push-pull through everything that we do in our day. We want to make sure that we're changing your daily movement patterns because it's all about better body movement. So we want that all through the day. All right. Have an absolutely fantastic day. We're going to jump back into the sciatica, SMR, or hip pain. Make sure that you work through that if you need it. Remember, I'm here to help you move well so you live well.
To best help your hips, you must understand the deep muscles under the glutes that hold your hip socket in place. The piriformis connects to the anterior sacrum and sacral ligament to the greater trochanter of the femur. The obturator externus connects from the obturator foramen to the trochanteric fossa of the femur. The remaining deep muscles are the gemellus superior, obturator internus, gemellus inferior, and quadratus femoris. We're going to begin with a stretch of the piriformis. Start seated in a chair and place one foot on top of the opposite knee. To create the stretch, pull the hips forward as if pushing your belly button through the hole between your legs. In this stretch, press your foot down into the knee for 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Relax and pick up the slack for about 10 seconds. 8, 7. Again, you're relaxing the belly button through the knees. 4, 2, 1. Press the foot into the leg for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And pick up the slack, relaxing forward. 8, 7, 3, 2, 1. Repeat this process for a total of 10 contractions. Now, in the same figure 4 position, use a lacrosse ball to increase the intensity. Place it right at the head of the femur where the piriformis inserts. You may have to roll around a little bit to find the tender spot. Once you find it, repeat the 5-second contract and 10-second relax sequence for a total of 10 repetitions. Next, we're going to work the glute maximus. The glute muscle starts at the posterior sacrum, ilium, and posterior gluteal line of the ilium, all the way down the gluteal tuberosity of the femur, iliotibial tract attaching to the lateral condyle of the tibia. When the glutes are not working correctly, the attachments at the knee take the brunt of the pain. We're going to begin the work on the glutes by simply sitting on the foam roller and rolling back and forth. If you feel like you're not getting enough pressure, you can lean to one side, either with your arm on the ground or your arm on the foam roller. Remember to work the glutes with different leg positions. You can roll them in or let them drop out while you continue to roll back and forth over that tissue, looking for the most tender and sore spots. When you find one, sit and hold. After some deep breaths, move on. Continue to find the most tender spots on the left and right sides. If it feels like you didn't get enough pressure, move on to the lacrosse ball. Place the lacrosse ball under the glute muscle. Side note, to take some pressure off the wrists, simply use your foam roller as an armrest under your elbows. Begin rolling the ball around the glute muscle till you find a tender spot. Pause and breathe. Remember to take deep breaths through the diaphragm. Each time you breathe out, relax more into the lacrosse ball. Next, we're going to focus on the glute medius, minimus, and the tensor fascia lata. The glute medius connects from the iliac crest of the ilium between the posterior and anterior gluteal lines out to the greater trochanter of the femur. Beneath the gluteus medius is the gluteus minimus. This muscle begins from the ilium between the anterior and inferior gluteal lines to the anterior surface of the greater trochanter of the femur. These two muscles work together to steady the pelvis during ipsilateral training, or standing on one leg. The tensor fascia lata begins from the iliac crest posterior to anterior superior iliac spine, all the way down to the iliotibial tract, which you can see is the lateral condyle of the tibia. Much like the glute max, when these muscles are not firing, the pressure goes directly into your knees. Laying on your back with a straight leg and your opposite knee bent, place the lacrosse ball next to your hip. Do not lift the hips to place the ball, simply relax on the floor, place the ball beside your hip, now roll over onto the ball. You may have to move the ball around a little bit to find the right spots, but ultimately you are looking for the pain to settle into the lacrosse ball. You may begin by rolling the knee in and out or pressing down into the floor and lifting the leg just a tiny bit. This position is uncomfortable. Stay here until you feel those muscles relax and you can allow your pressure to lay on the lacrosse ball.